And you also played at Frostbite and anyone else?
Played in Frostbite. Before Frostbite, I was in a band called True Identity. Before that, I was in like my first band when I was like 15 called Frame of Reference. I also play in a band now called Gypsy. It's like a post-hardcore kind of band.
And you were always local here, 570?
Yeah, I went to college in Philly at Temple, and then now I'm in school in Harrisburg. But I mean, this is
gotcha. Could you tell us what attracted you to, like, how'd you get into the PA hardcore scene? Like, what got you in around what year or two?
I started listening to like punk and hardcore, more punk. You know, like your intro bands.
Yeah.
Like Misfits, NoFX, all that stuff in like probably 1996. And then my first show was 1997, above Top of the Slope. It was Bigwig, Hate Potion. Who I remember Hate Potion had like a big like argument with the Riot Girls in the area at the time. It was like my first hardcore show. It was so weird to see. Bigwig, Hate Potion, Magnus, somebody else. But I got into it through a bunch of, like a kid my age, his older brother was in punk bands and stuff like that, and he was always like the coolest dude to us, and he would give us like, you know, CDs and, you know.
What year is this, you'd say?
96, 97. Frostbite started. It was, True Identity had broken up. Everybody it was like our first year of college where people were kind of scattered about. Some people were still here, some people were a little bit younger, some people were in Philly, some people were in school, you know. It's that like weird age. And my friend Ryan, who sang in Frostbite and played guitar in True Identity, he wrote this demo where he did everything by himself pretty much. And it was like a joke, and it sounded cool. And we're like, this is weird. Like,
around what year was Frostbite?
2001 or 2002.
Okay. And you guys went to about when?
2003 or 4. It wasn't long.
Yeah.
All we did was a demo and a 7-inch. We recorded an LP, it never came out.
Gotcha.
No, I don't even know if there was ever vocals on it. It was me, Ryan Schaefer sang, Chris Thomas played guitar, Brad Zellen and Dave Foster both played bass intermittently, and Rob Stitzer played drums.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was cool. It was kind of like my first little go at doing a band that people kind of cared about outside of the area. So it was interesting as far as that was concerned. We did our 7-inch with Dead by 23. I didn't really, that band I was kind of a little more just played in. I didn't really do too much with. It was more just like, yeah, it's me and my friends, let's go play some shows.
Gotcha.
So, but I mean, it was my first kind of step into playing in a band that, not playing in Wilkes-Barre, that people might care about a little bit. Okay. Started in 2004. I had played in, it's funny, my first show, I saw Magnus, and then I ended up playing in Magnus. And Dan sang in Magnus, Nick played drums for like the second half of Magnus. Hans, who's passed away, played drums at the beginning of Magnus. But I wanted to do a band again, and I called up Foster, who was the first bass player at Cold World, and said, let's do a band that sounds like Biohazard and the Cro-Mags, and somehow sounds like Underdog too. And that was the goal at first, and like Life of Agony or something. And we were like, and I'm like, I want Dane to sing. I'm like, his voice sucks. I'm like, but he's got cool stage presence. So I'm like, who cares? You know, I'm like, it's like hardcore's about live shows. So I'm like, whatever. But then, so we started doing stuff, and we asked Nick to be in the band too, and he was instrumental in making Cold World what Cold World was. It is.
I interviewed him already.
Yeah. And it was Nick who took us from being a normal hardcore band to something a little more different. And Nick and I have always clicked really well together when we write songs. We bounce ideas off each other real well. We don't fight about anything. It's always kind of a give and take.
And then around what year did you guys get with Death Wish?
Boy. I think, I want to say 2007, maybe? That sounds about right to me.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. But we
And,
were on the label for about a year before we put out Dedicated. They've been awesome to us. I mean, they put up with a lot of stupid stuff on our end. I mean, just, we have, Dan's in England, and even when he was here, he had this problem with his throat where something happened where he couldn't sing more than 15 minutes at a time. So the entire LP was done in 15-minute takes. So, I mean, it was a process. So, they've been unbelievable with us with just the patience it's just been great. Going to shows and like you see these bands coming through your town and it's always like, especially when you're younger, you know, I could always go back to that little frame of reference of being younger and seeing bands and being like a band comes through, you know, like your little town and you're like this band, like you have been listening to their records for like, you know, however long, you know, moshing in your room with your friends and stuff like that. And I kind of got to be that band for some kids, I feel like, and it was the coolest. It still is. It's like there's no feeling like playing to a kid and watching him be the most as pumped as I was when I would see a band come through. That's just, it makes everything. Obviously I'm biased saying this, but I think this area of Northeast PA is a good microcosm of Pennsylvania, and the fact that like Pennsylvania is really interestingly located in that we're really close to everything. I saw a sign once that said Philadelphia is a one-day drive away from 75% of America's population. So Wilkes-Barre, for instance, is, you know, 2 hours from Philly, 2 hours from New York, 3 hours from DC. You know, it's really close to everything. So I felt like we're kind of a good microcosm of that, in that we got every band that ever toured, any hardcore band has always played here. So we saw it all. And everybody, because we were such a small area, we were so accepting of everything. That you couldn't be biased. You couldn't be like, oh, Black Train Jack's coming through, they're a little too poppy for me. You're like, no, it's a hardcore band, we're gonna like them, I don't give a fuck kind of thing. So it was like, and I think that's what makes like a band like Wisdom, you know, where they're not your normal hardcore band. You know, a band like us, we're not your normal hardcore band. A band like Title Fight, they're not your normal hardcore band. It's just because we've grown up in this area where it's just everything's been accepted and it's been passed down from generation to generation. And I think it makes it's so cool. You know, and we've become such good friends with everybody else in every other big city and every other city in Pennsylvania. We've all become like, it's become like such a, like we're all like super close. We all still have like our secular things where obviously you know your people around you a lot better than anybody else. But like, I'm super good friends with people from all over the state, and it's awesome. If it was like a band that like you weren't that into, you were still paying the cover. You were still going and hanging out, and like even if you didn't like them, you still might end up buying a T-shirt or something like that, anyways, just because it was like, you know, if everybody else likes them, maybe they're not that bad or something. It's just it's always a little different up here. Cafe Metropolis, Home Base. I missed Manus Green and The Factory. Those were the two that, those are the two I always hear about. But my first handful of shows would always be at Cafe Metropolis in the old Sterling. Then they moved to Main Street. Then Home Base, that was my baby. That was, you know, because one of my best friends was pretty much one of the guys who ran the place. So we would go there on like weeknights and just play video games and stuff. There was a little place that had like 3 shows in it called The Future. It was right near like where Tudor Books was in Kingston. It had like Coalesce played there and like Mental played there. There was like 2 huge shows and that was it. And I'm trying to think that every VFW we've all done every show at. You know, every church we've tried to do something at, but they won't let us for whatever reason. Then Italian clubs, stuff like that, and then Redwood. Probably the most recent.
Did a lot of interviews there,
And that place it sucks that they just had to leave that spot because it was perfect size. That was the best part about it. The first Redwood that they had to leave.
Oh, all right. I thought you just meant the new one's closed before it even opened. All right.
No, I love I love narrow clubs. There's something about it that's just awesome to me. But the new one's gonna be just as good. Hopefully it's everything. Hopefully they're like 20 shows deep by the time this is. I could see, it gets lost in the shuffle, but when you're talking about, you know, the past whatever, 5-6 years, you don't talk about hardcore without talking about Pennsylvania. It's just,
That's awesome.
it's not feasible. It doesn't matter what kind of hardcore band you like, there's something that's come out of Pennsylvania that's been in your wheelhouse, whether it's, us, Title Fight, Blacklisted, Painted Black, Wisdom, Steel Nation, something, there's something for everybody. Not only do we have a lot of bands and great scenes, we have people who have been around, everybody involved with both of those fests have been around for a lot longer than I have. And, I've been around for a little bit, and they've been around a lot longer than me, and they've been busting their asses the whole time. Yeah. And that's the case in, I think that's, Boston, New York, D.C., Baltimore, Richmond, just the East Coast. They all have the same thing, but we're finally starting to get our PA's finally starting to get its recognition that it deserves. And a lot can be put directly on the shoulders of the people who are involved in both those fests, and every person that's been involved for the majority of the Pennsylvania hardcore's life, maybe 2002, 2003. In my opinion, that's when it really skyrocketed. Yeah. As far as you didn't even make physical flyers for the most part anymore. It's like a lost art.
Yes, it is.
Great
words.
I think it's great seeing flyers. My little brother is like the ultimate hardcore nerd, and he collects things like old flyers. And it's just, what are you going to collect? Like an old Tumblr post now? It's not cool. I don't know. I miss it. Yeah. But with that said, I don't know if that's what, there's good and bad with everything. The great part is it's reaching, greater masses. It's, there's such an awesome message with hardcore. Hardcore is such a lifesaver for a lot of kids who need it. And it's there, and it's available, and it's more readily available, and hopefully it does what it's supposed to do, and it gives these kids that need it, that support. Yeah. At the same time, there's the part of it where it's just like, now it's so easy to, I don't want to go to a show, I'm going to watch it on YouTube, in a week. I'm going to click on the video, I'm going to order the shirt from here, and then I'm just going to sit around and talk shit anonymously on every single thing else. Maybe I feel like such an old guy when I talk like that, because I know it's probably what kids do at that age, I guess. I don't know. But I don't know. It's weird. But you miss the sense of camaraderie of going on a trip somewhere with your family, say, right? You go on a trip to the Jersey Shore with your family, and you see some kid walk around with a floor punch shirt or a chain of strength shirt. If a certain point in time, you're just gonna walk up to that person and be like, "Oh, what's up? How are you? Nice to meet you. Where are you from? What's your scene like? Da 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 da." Now you go to the shore, and you see somebody in I don't know. I gotta choose a Friends band so I don't sound like a huge dick. Cruel Hand. So you go to the shore and you see somebody in a Cruel Hand shirt, right? You're just like, oh, they might be a hardcore kid. Crutch. Yep. I think Crutch was one of the coolest bands to do what they did before tons of bands did. I'm biased, I'll say Magnus. I thought Magnus was super cool. I think right now Steel Nation's really awesome, and they don't get looked at enough. I mean, it's shaped me as a person. I'm about to be a dad. I think it's shaped me as, a father to be. I think it's shaped me as, I got to see the world. I'm not gonna ever let myself be defined by one thing, but I'm going to let everything influence me, and whether it's positive or negative, that's the only way I think you should live your life, is to see things and go forth with that and do the best you can out of what you've seen. And I've seen so much good in hardcore, whether it's helping out people who need help, whether it's putting on benefit shows for people that can't afford something, whether it's accepting any single person that comes through the door, no matter what they look like. It's taught me to be a better person.
Wait.
I really think that. I love being from Pennsylvania. It's the only state I've ever lived in. It's the only state I'll ever live in. It's got every single thing you could want in a state. You know, even hardcore side, I think it's the most beautiful state, great people, better food, great sports teams.